this is our third monthly webinar, and we're trying something different this month. We're going to have a live AMA or a Q&A session, which should be interesting. So we really want to hear your questions live. Feel free to ask anything of us. We have a nice cross-section of the firm. So joining us today from Ottawa, Ben Wilson, who's our head of M&A architecture, getting great experience there. And then coming from Regina, Taylor Hewson, who's a senior wealth advisor and was part of the team that was the first team to join PWL after we joined One Digital. Taylor, how you doing?
Good. Happy to be here.
Beautiful. And then all the way from Kingston, Ontario, Braden, great to have you. Braden's our financial planning product architect, builds and thinks about all the cool stuff that helps improve the advisor and client experience. So let's jump into the first question until we get some in the chat. When you look at the Canadian wealth landscape today, what is PWL trying to fix? What do you guys want to take a crack at that?
Sure, I can take the initial crack at it. And I don't know if fix is the right word, but I think we're kind of coming up with a new innovative approach to how we build a business. And part of this is inspired by some of the firms in the States that are bigger, one philosophy, one approach type firms like, say, Creative Planning, Mercer Advisors, Edelman, some of these bigger firms in the States that have gotten a lot of success by focusing on basic premise that markets work, planning matters. We're trying to take our own spin on that and kind of have this one team, one vision approach in Canada. There's so much of the Canadian industry that is dominated by the six big banks. So that takes away a lot of opportunity from the smaller independents. And I shouldn't say take away. It creates an opportunity for those that are planning focused, that truly provide high quality advice. Not that all bank advisors are not good planners, but just generally they're sales motivated engines. So we want to focus on what's truly right for the client, not motivated by product commissions, but trying to focus on building a true firm. So whether you're talking to someone in Regina like Taylor, someone in Quebec or Ontario or anywhere across the country, you should get a similar high quality experience as a client.
So let me spin the question a bit for you, Taylor. When you think about the landscape today as an advisor, what did you see that PWL, the platform, was able to fix for you?
Well, and I think, like Ben said, I don't know if I would use the word fix. I think of enhancing the offering to Canadians. So when you look at working, and I came from an independent broker dealer model, like a lot of smaller independent firms do. Wasn't from the bank or insurance company, but the banks and insurance companies have the same model where you have these silos of advisors running, really unique little businesses, which is great. But I think there's just a ton of scale and possibility when you bring everything together and start building technology and processes, marketing for one vision and one way to service clients. Doesn't mean it doesn't allow people like myself to have my own way of dealing with clients and talking with them, but I've got the backing of a team and technology to service them and to do it well. So I think it's, to me, when I would sit around the room with other, my peers, and we'd be talking about, what technology to bring in and talking about our tech stack and like, well, what is this new thing that does this in your CRM, and looking at plugging it in. And we'd spend time spinning our wheels on that. And all that was working kind of on the business and getting away from the ultimate goal, which is to provide really great financial planning to clients.
Braden, what's your take on this? Because you have a totally different vantage point than all of us.
Yeah, the way I look at the wealth landscape today in Canada anyways, is I see kind of two extremes, and Ben and Taylor both touched on it, but the one extreme being the bank-focused, sales-oriented world. And obviously the thing we're trying to fix there is that our business is about prioritizing client outcomes first and not sales targets. But then on the other extreme, we've got independents who think like that. They are focused on improving client outcomes first and foremost. but they run into the issues that Taylor talked about. So I think what we're trying to do is solve both of those problems is being a large institution and growing and collecting like-minded advisors that think like us and ultimately to improve client outcomes at scale across the country.
And you've had your fingerprints all over some tools, technology, and a whole lot of math to solve things that we really were trying to actually fix, like fixing rules of thumb that may or may not have been sensible. You talk a bit about that?
Well, yeah, totally. I think when you dig a little bit deeper into that and think about our business and what solving for these types of problems and improving client outcomes at scale actually means, then it provides opportunities for roles like mine where I can focus on innovating and doing the math and coming up with new planning strategies to improve those client outcomes. And I think those types of roles don't really exist in either space in the bank world that's prioritized by sales targets and the independent space that just doesn't have the scale to hire people full time to think on stuff like this. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff that goes into like say business owner compensation modeling and asset location strategies, just some of the few that I've worked on recently. There's a lot of work that we're doing in those areas.
But that takes a lot of brain power, technology, programming power, and experience. So you and Ben Felix, for example, have worked a lot on a number of projects that need that combination to come to a solution. And to your point, I've talked to other people in the industry about these cool things that you guys have done that I think really matters. And many people in the industry say, you don't need that. It's like, well, you may not need it, but it does lead to objectively a better outcome and a better decision. Would you not agree?
100%. And I think you touched on it, Cameron, but I don't want to say that the stuff is that hard necessarily, but you need to have your brain dedicated to that full time. Like trying to take on that level of innovation and modeling, it's a full time job. And trying to, you know, improve client relationships and run a business and do marketing and lead gen and all of that stuff, it's pretty easy to put that stuff to the back burner. But I think the cool thing about what we're building is that we have people dedicated to this stuff full time that can fully dive in and solve these hard problems.
But I really think that speaks to the culture. And Ben, you've been a big part of the culture of scaling this kind of thinking in the client space. Maybe shed some of your thoughts about that, just what it means to deliver this kind of quality, especially if we're talking here to advisors who might be considering their next chapter. I think it really gets to you kind of got to be nerdy about this stuff to really be happy here. Would you agree?
I would agree for sure. And I think I would add to that, like, even if you are nerdy and obsessed with this stuff in a small individual practice, you only have so much capacity and scale on your own before you start kind of parsing off into other areas of the business, diluting your own time into management, HR discussions, technology platforms, focusing on your clients, and all the things that come along with building a business. But I think the other kind of cool, attractive part that I often talk to advisors about and they get excited about is the collaborative culture that we have here at PWL. It's not just one guy on their own or girl on their own figuring out, okay, this is a client situation. How do I address their problem? You've got a more complex planning problem. You can collaborate with anyone or multiple advisors on the team to say like, okay, I've come up with this approach to solve the client's problem. Can I get your eyes on it? I want to get your insight to make sure I'm thinking about all the implications. And it elevates the experience, not just for the client, but also internally for advisors, because you know that you're doing a better job, and collaboratively or collectively, we are leveling up our knowledge and experience as a firm, which benefits the entire team and the client experience across the country.
Are you a better advisor now, Taylor, than before you joined?
Well, I was going to say, I push back a little bit on the, I think you do have to be a bit of a nerd about this stuff, but I joined PWL along with my brother, Connor, and he was more in the weeds. I was a bit more bigger picture, and I don't want to convey the sense that like you need to be really in the weeds on this stuff to come and join a team like ours. I am generally more bigger picture, but my focus was always on what is in the best interest of our clients. Yes, what is going to be beneficial for myself and my family and my business, but ultimately this has to be driven by what's in the best interest of the client. And when I took a look at the tools that PWL were bringing out and the type of client situations I was running into, it's sort of hard to look away from like, well, look at what we're building, and we can actually use those tools to help deliver eventually the advice, which is the important part. We're not often bringing some of these tools right into clients' faces, but we're using them to give us the confidence to go and know that we're delivering the right advice at the right time. And so I think I've been here 8 or 9 months, which kind of seems crazy. It's been a complete whirlwind. And my game has leveled up substantially in that time. And I've been around the industry for coming on 17 years. Wow. So kind of seasoned and should sort of know my stuff. And it's not as if I didn't, but we're not looking to try and fix. It's just we're getting better and we're doing it together. That's the biggest impact for me.
Yeah, and you guys also improved us, so it's a two-way street. How about we go to the next question?
Yeah, let's do it.
What's the conversation you wish more advisors were having with themselves right now?
I could come back to, and I'm a part of a group in Canada called the Financial Planning Association of Canada, and it's a great place for advisors to share ideas and things. And I come across this at industry events and stuff too. But I come back to sitting around talking about the technology and what things we're implementing in our business, and we're all kind of doing it, but we're all talking in silos. And ultimately you got to then turn back and go back to your own business and try and figure out, well, how do I implement that? And inevitably the client questions come in and you're just back to working in the business. So I think I guess there's two things. I wish that the advisors would be thinking more about how can we do this more collaboratively. And I think there's an interest in that, but where can you go to actually get that experience? It's very hard to do in a traditional broker, dealer, bank insurance type of model. And then the second thing is also I think that's the next chapter, is the title of this webinar. Starting to think about the next generation too. I mean, our industry is not doing a good job of bringing younger, talented advisors into the industry and training them how to do really good financial planning. At PWL, we've created a place where people who are new to the industry can come in and get into meetings and see how advisors talk to their clients, as well as learning the more technical side of that. I think if I was somebody joining the industry and I didn't know where to go, I mean, my dad was actually in the business and he had a small book of business that I kind of had enough income for him that I sort of weaseled my way into. But otherwise, there was no other options. I remember interviewing at some different companies and the mindset was completely different. So I think I think looking to the next generation, who's going to be the people looking after my clients? And I'm not that old. But being here, I know that they are going to be looked after, and the people that are coming up the pipe are technically inclined, but they're also getting tons of reps in and client experiences and things like that.
Anything to add, guys?
Yeah, the way I would kind of take this question is, as an advisor, when you're kind of reflecting, think about how you want to make the most impact. I'm not looking at your own family or your own clients, but like this industry, especially in Canada, is highly driven by product commissions. It's highly driven by actively managed funds. And there's a large portion of the industry that is very insurance focused. There's an opportunity to be part of something bigger. And on your own, in this industry, it's a lucrative industry. If you're an advisor, once you've built up a decent book, your own financial economics can be taken care of pretty easily. But when you think beyond that, what is the value that you have to provide to society, and how can you work together with partners to make an even bigger background, to make a bigger impact to Canadians? And I think that's kind of what Taylor was hitting on. If all of these individual advisors, even the nerdy planning focused advisors, are working in silos, they're going to impact small groups of clients across the country, which is great, and you're definitely making an impact. But beyond that, it's harder to make a more broad impact as small individual units. If you come together and be part of something bigger, we could actually change the wealth management landscape today and in the future to focus on academically tested investment strategies that are take some of the guessing and forecasting, which is truly better for the client in the long run, and get clients access to planning focused advice that they may have never even seen or been aware of before now, just because they're focused on their own lane and their own advice that they're currently getting or not, and they don't know what's different out there. So there's a clear opportunity, I think, to create a better option that Canadians truly deserve.
Yeah, because there really is no one team with one philosophy in the independent channel that's well known across the country. And I'm not suggesting that we are yet, but that is the goal.
Yeah. And I think the other part of which Taylor touched on a little bit is the succession. Like a lot of people think I don't need to worry about succession. I'm young. I got 20 years before I need to think about who's going to take over my practice. But we've seen so many cases where something happens that you weren't expecting, whether it's sickness or accident or whatever it might be. If you don't have somebody in place to take over your clients, are they going to be taken care of in the way that you would want them to? And even if you're part of a bank or another firm where there are kind of partner advisors, they may not have the same philosophy. They may not have the same approach and care that you have for your clients. So I would encourage advisors, no matter what that looks like, to think about succession early so that you have a plan in place to make sure your clients are taken care of in a way that you would want.
Okay, we got a question come in here. How are you thinking about the role of AI at PWL over the next 3 to 5 years? Specifically, what parts of the advisor workflow do you believe will be augmented or replaced? And how do you prep your advisors for that? Or has it been hype? Great question. Maybe Braden, you want to take a first crack at
Sure.
that?
Yeah, it's such a hot topic lately, and we're obviously having a lot of conversations internally about what AI means for us and what it means for the future. But from my point of view, I don't think AI can ever replace the human element of the relationship between a client and an advisor. So I don't think that AI poses a massive threat to what we are doing. If anything, it it makes what we're doing even more unique in this world of AI, where people are turning to AI for advice or for simple questions.
For people who
Um,
want to work with a human.
that's right. Yeah. I think AI has really opened up the accessibility for simple generic advice. Like you could go to AI and ask about TFSAs versus RSPs and it'll spit out those details. But I think there's a couple things. One, someone actually has to seek out that advice in the first place. So that's still filtering out a large portion of the population. And and secondly, it's pretty simple. If you have a simple situation, those people probably wouldn't have been able to have access to an advisor in an AUM model anyways. So it doesn't really replace what we're offering. But I think there's still a lot of opportunity for us to leverage AI to make our processes more efficient and to provide insights and have more data available at our fingertips than ever before. So I think that's where we're trying to place our efforts. At PWL, we've already invested a lot in our data infrastructure. We've built a data lake. We have an integrated platform where we have data from all of our different vendors flowing into like conquest planning, where we've got OneVest for onboarding software. We're working with Digit for a portfolio management software. So we're having all of this data located in one spot provides a big opportunity for us to leverage AI to get holistic insights. You see it now where each of those software have their own implementation of AI. Like I know Conquest just released last week their AI functionality where you can talk to AI about the financial plan. But in that world, it's still missing a lot of the other details that might live in the CRM, or that might live in the portfolio management software. But for us, we have that all under in one spot so that we can layer AI on top of that to get a more holistic view and holistic insight. So I think from our standpoint at PWL, we're set up really well to take advantage of AI moving forward. And I definitely do not see it replacing our financial advice, but I see it enhancing it a lot.
So, a question for you, Taylor, because you were managing your own infrastructure inside the dealer you formerly were at. How big a deal is this data structure in your mind to be able to leverage the data to help you do things? Because I talk to advisors all the time, and most people I speak to don't even know what a data lake is, let alone the benefits you get from having a data lake. So, as a practitioner from the independent space, how do you view this?
Well, I think, and I would have been one of those folks who were like, well, what is a data lake and what does it do? But when you describe it and then you think of not the problems, but the friction that you were having in running your own smaller shop is, okay, that I understand. Because again, I would talk to vendors and I would, go to a conference and I'd be sitting with peers and I'd be thinking about, okay, how can we implement this in our little shop? And then you'd go and do it, and you maybe even get a trial of the software, and you like, oh, this is really great, this is cool. But you hit a point where, okay, to actually implement this, I need to basically, I didn't own my own data, right? I owned my own business, but I didn't really own the data. My dealer owned the data, and it was up to them for who they were going to bring in to be able to plug into that. So I wouldn't be able to elucidate what that like meant. But then when I look at the practicality of the implications of having control over that data as we're going to continue to evolve. I mean, you just listed off Digit and Conquest. These are newish softwares over the last little while that are great for our business. That's not going to go away. That's going to continue to happen as client needs evolve, as our industry evolves, and to have control of that data. Correct me if I'm wrong, Braden, because this is not my area of expertise. It's just going to allow you to take advantage of that and implement it very quickly. And it's again, I come back to when I'm dealing with clients directly face to face, I want to know that I've got the infrastructure and confidence behind me to know that I'm giving the right advice, and being able to know that I don't have to spend time thinking about how I'm going to illustrate this or how I'm going to really think about this optimization problem. I can go into that meeting and talk about more of the softer non-AI stuff that we do really well. So I want to have time in that meeting to ask those probing questions to get at maybe what some of the concerns clients are having. Because if I have to spend it, illustrating stuff or, even before the meeting, prepping myself to have that conversation with the client, as opposed to, well, I need to pull this data piece from here and this data piece from here. Or if I don't want to do that, now I got to hire someone, which means now I'm increasing my responsibility in HR and legal and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Ben, anything to add?
I think I agree with what Braden and Taylor have said. Like the data lake, it, again, is pretty unique in our industry. And a foreign concept, but having ownership over our own data is much more valuable than people may seem. Like even just reflecting back to the previous planning tool we used, NaviPlan, like the data was native to NaviPlan, so we couldn't actually pull that out. Now through Conquest, we have access and control over the data that feeds into Conquest and comes out of Conquest. So that enables us to leverage that further, potentially use AI in ways that we haven't even thought of to further enhance the experience both for clients and for employees internally to provide better quality advice across the board.
Good point. Let's go to the next question. Next slide. Does PWL have annual AUM growth or revenue targets for their advisors? Taylor, did we ever give you one?
No, I have my own in here. No,
Yeah,
haven't heard people with that. But we have targets as a team, and that's the unique thing, I think, is that I'm not coming into this and having, again, I'm not a silo anymore. I'm part of a bigger team, and we're going to work together for an end objective, and not just the advice team, but the technology team, the marketing team. We're all working towards the same goal, and we're all going to benefit if that works and if it results in more clients coming to PWL. And so in that sense, like, yes, we've got got targets, but not for the advisor, which is more of a traditional model. We've got expectations for ourselves as a company to grow that impact, and that's fun to be a part of. That's the team aspect of it.
But you don't wake up every day thinking where you're going to find your next prospect, do you?
No, I mean we've got. I think how I'm going to deliver, how am I going to keep continuing to deliver good advice and serve my clients. That's the driving force. That's what helps me sleep at night. At the same time, as I said, I'm from Regina. PWL did not have a presence in here before we did join, and I'm still thinking about ways to bring more of what we're doing to our local population, to Saskatchewan. And so, the classic prospecting of having hosting some events or doing webinars, my mindset's still there, but nobody's telling me I have to do that. There's still an entrepreneurial spirit that's alive in me, which is interesting because I don't know if we would have expected that, having sold a business and then joining a larger team as an employee. But that's still very much there. What's great is that when I want to go do that and I've got some ideas, I've got now a whole team that can come work collaboratively on, our marketing department has run these before. How do we get the word out for it? I've now got so much more leverage to do the things I want to do. So I think I understand what the question is getting at, but so not in the traditional sense, but we've still got a place where you can come and have have a growth mindset still.
Exactly. Okay, Braden, there's a question here I think you can take. What is the piece of software, technology, and or process that you think improves your clients' relationships and experiences the most?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for me, and I think about our business and even taking the technology piece out of it for a second, how are we improving the client relationship the most? And I think that our service offering is based around financial planning and helping clients make informed, data-driven, evidence-based decisions. So I think that if we loop technology back into that conversation, I think the answer has to be the planning software, being able to model different client questions with like as accurately as we possibly can and help them make informed decisions around what their future might look like if they take one route or the other. I think that's extremely powerful. So I guess the answer to that is Conquest, but then we can also layer in some of the proprietary planning tools that we build on top of that interact with Conquest.
Can you
And
share one?
sure, yeah, let's do it. I'll share my screen in a moment here, but I'll just give a brief
The backstory, I'm
backstory.
asking Braden to share his newest creation, which we think is incredible.
Yeah, so we've built we're calling it the planning checklist, and it's like the concept of it is that from our perspective, financial planning covers the 6 areas, and we need to make sure, like advisors want to make sure that they're hitting on all 6 of those areas. But so much of that work is done outside of Conquest. Conquest, and just in case it's not obvious, we use Conquest Planning as our planning software. Like all of the little things, like reviewing the will, beneficiaries, all of the administrative stuff, all of the legal stuff, all of that stuff is done outside of Conquest, but we still need to make sure that we're hitting on those and reminding ourselves when was the last time we've done each of these things and what needs to be reviewed with the client. So that's the use case of the checklist, is having one spot to go that has everything summarized for the advisor to get a quick snapshot of where they're at with the client relationship and what they need to focus on. So with that said, I'll just share my screen here quickly just to give you guys a sense of what that would look like. So here's a sample right here. Demo client, not a real client, obviously. But the idea is that we have split the planning items, and this master list, by the way, has over 100 planning items that I've come up with Ben Felix, and we have a financial planning council at PWL where we review these things and try to make these things as good and comprehensive as we can. But the idea is like say we're having a meeting with our client and we want to or we reviewed one of these items like RESP successor holder. You can go in and add um, yeah, a note on this and check that off, and then that item becomes complete. And
So the key here is you've locked a note about an item to that item so it doesn't get buried in a string of notes, correct?
yeah, 100%. Like previous, we had like a whole bunch of notes in the CRM, and but it's like very difficult to search. And I know some other advisors, I've heard stories of having like a Word document for each client, and it just becomes this like, 30-page Word document of all of this stuff. It's really hard to nail down what work has been done for in each area, and it's time stamped, and it's also stamped with the person that completed the item. So if we're thinking really long term now, like fast forward 20, 30 years, you can see that you'd have the notes in here from one advisor, but that might change and evolve over time as people progress in their careers and hand over clients. So we're we're really hoping that this captures the relationship of the client with PWL as a whole and not just for the advisor. The client can see that full history of their service offering. And and then it also makes it much easier to transition clients because you can click on the checklist for a client and you can see as an advisor taking over a new client, you can see all the work that's been done. You can see what you need to prioritize and where you can go in and add value.
So there's another question here. What is that book
Yep.
button versus client button?
Yeah, so that gives you the book level view of everything. And this environment here doesn't have a lot of work done in it, so there's a lot left to do. But it gives you a sense of um, how am I doing? Like I've also got this sorted so that like this rolls up to all of the capital team so that we can have that team level view. But if you're a single advisor, you could have the view of just your book of clients. Like in this case, we've got 800, but you might have 200 clients that you could look at. And once this is complete, then you'd be able to have a sense of at the book level, I've done a really good job at cash flow and retirement planning, but I haven't done much estate planning. So that needs to be my focus for the next 4 months is I need to
Right.
get caught up with my estate planning, review some wills and all that stuff. And then you can dive into the client level as well on a client by client basis and see like specifically which items you need to tackle.
So you built this. It links with our data lake, correct?
Yep, exactly. It links with our data lake. Um, the plans for this moving forward, and one of the big next steps is to take all of this information and build a proprietary financial planning deliverable. So once we have all of these notes, we have all of the work that's been done, we can roll that up into, a short report that summarizes all the value that we're providing to our clients. And I plan to integrate that with Conquest as well. So if we wanted
So
to have a
there's a
retirement, yeah, go ahead, Cameron.
sorry, there's a follow-up question just to that specifically, Braden. Why did PWL land on using Conquest for planning or other platforms, specifically Snap projections? Super interested in Braden's opinion on this.
Oh yeah, it's a great question. So I'll say at the time that we were making this decision, which this was 2024, I think.
Yep.
When I was reviewing the what was available in the industry, Snap at the time didn't have the ability to do a Monte Carlo analysis, and that for us that was a hard stop. Like we were not going to switch planning providers or software providers without that functionality because it's critical for all of our plans. Like all of our clients that's that's how we make decisions. We don't make decisions based on what the straight line expectation is going to be. We make decisions based on what that distribution of planning outcomes will look like. So yeah, it was just really a hard stop. Conquest was the only software that had all the functionality that we need, and I think Snap has since added a Monte Carlo, but um, I think Conquest is just it's extremely powerful, and we're really happy with the move overall since making that switch.
Taylor, Ben, anything to add to that question?
Just specifically the Conquest versus Snap, I agreed. Just like it seemed like from when we did the analysis comparing, like there's lots of great tools out there, but Conquest just seems to stand out above the rest. Like NaviPlan, we also thought was pretty good, but when you dug into the details and how it looks at different planning strategies and even their agility as new rules come out, like they're much faster to roll out new changes, it seems, compared to our experience with NaviPlan anyway. So we're constantly leveling up our game. Plus the APIs to potentially allow us to pull data out, use it in some of the proprietary tools that we have used was also a key determining factor.
Taylor, I'll let you take this next question. What are your thoughts on being an advisor for friends or family? For example, in-laws are looking for a new advisor and have expressed interest in you advising them, but I'm weighing how it could potentially impact my relationship with them.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think just the fact that you're thinking about that kind of question is sort of the type of thinking that goes into the work we do. It's a thoughtful question. We don't have any restrictions on that at PWL. And you're kind of in a hard place because even if you refer them to someone else, you're somewhat responsible for, the eventual work that gets done. But I think about that a lot, not necessarily with in-laws, but just in my clients who, become like family and friends in some cases over generations. In some regard, my grandfather started in the insurance business, and I still have farming clients that he was working with their grandparents. So they can become quite close. I will say that when you think about planning and you think about investing the way that we all do, it's very important to us that where our clients are and family and friends are looked after by a company that's going to continue that on. And if something were to happen to me, knowing that PWL and the team here is going to hold our client's hand through, continuing on with that relationship, provides me a lot of comfort because I know they're going to get a similar philosophy. That service that I've and my team have delivered to clients is going to continue because we've built an ecosystem where that's allowed to continue. So I think it's a thoughtful question, and there's no real rules around it that I know of, anyways. But I think that's exactly why we're why we're doing this and why we're building this as one book and one team, so that we can handle. If I'd have someone like a situation like that and I wasn't sure that would be a good fit, really close friend and things like that, well, I've got a team member that I can hand them off to who might actually have maybe deeper expertise in their specific situation as opposed to me. So I get to hand them off. I know they're gonna have a great experience. They still feel like they're helping, and contributing to our business with PWL, and we all benefit from that, right? Because we are one team. I know that just because, and let's say this in-law had lots of money. Well, I know as our team, we've brought in a good client, and it's benefited all of us, as opposed to if I'm, when you're independent, it's a harder decision to make because, not just with the in-laws example, but, that when you bring on a new client, it goes directly to your bottom line. And so if you know that maybe this isn't the right fit, or I know if I can't really do the job I should be able to do for this client, it's hard to say no. Whereas with us, we've got the ecosystem, I said before, to deal with that. And especially as clients get more complex, and often that means higher net worth and the like. We one of our largest clients, actually, when we brought our business over, we engaged with some of the private client group at PWL, folks who are used to dealing with that level of client. And we're still working with them. We're still the relationship person there, but we're able to use that team to have a view on the plan and to help service the client. And that's been an incredible experience. That's a good question. I'm not sure if you guys have anything else to add on that.
I turned a family member down because they were going to just try out our investment philosophy. They didn't really believe. If you don't really believe, family member or not, it's not going to work in all likelihood. So what can a PWL advisor do to impact their compensation? Ben?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question and obviously a hot topic for people considering what your next chapter is, and a common, I guess, pushback or concern that people raise with us is like, well, what's it like being an employee? When I own my own book, I get all the profits after expenses. If I grow my business, then theoretically I become better off as an owner. And that may be true, but it depends how fast you grow and how you kind of build out your team accordingly. So we do operate on an employee model, but as Taylor kind of alluded to, although you're an employee, we really encourage and want to embrace the entrepreneurial spirit that led you to become successful in your own practice and leverage that to grow better together as a firm. So in terms of how to impact compensation, like our current model is a salary commensurate with the role and your responsibility. We have like a team-based bonus that's more of a profit sharing approach across the firm. And there's also an opportunity to participate and put up your hand to purchase equity for all employees to purchase equity if they've been here for, I think, at least 6 months, leading up to the next annual share offering that we provide. Or if you do join and have an existing business, then typically a portion of your deal proceeds would be exchangeable for equity in PWL / One Digital. It's One Digital equity, which we think is a pretty attractive opportunity because it's a diversified business of employee benefits, insurance, retirement, wealth, and some other businesses there. So rather than having all the equity in your own small firm, you've got equity in a larger diversified business, which is pretty cool. Taylor, what's your perspective there on?
Yeah, I mean, this was front of mind as we were joining. I mean, we were looking at, what we kind of had two paths. It's like how do we continue to build our company, and what would need to happen to do that? Because we did hit kind of a bit of a wall where I talk about joining PWL. We weren't leaving a problem. Things were good. Clients were happy. We were doing good work. The revenues and expenses, all the business metrics and stuff were all aligned. But we were looking, okay, how do we, I'm not sure if replicated is the right word, or how do we do this again then in the next 10 years, next 20 years? And we saw that, okay, well, we could do this on our own, and we would need to hire, associates. We need to bring different technology in. We would need to invest heavily in the business. So I think either way, there is some money going out. And so when you compare that to the compensation, honestly, I mean, it's an important aspect, and it certainly was a consideration for us. The opportunity in our minds for being a part of this growth and the potential impact in Canada was second to the financial metrics of it. And when I did our own financial planning, I looked at, okay, well, when we factor all this in, there's definitely scenarios where we would end up better off. When you look at the diversified nature of the business they're building and the team, the pace of growth that we can have, really hard to replicate in a small shop. So if anything, it came more to the question of, do we just continue on kind of status quo? Because, the work and the money that would be involved to get us to where we want it to be, I think we would have sort of said we kind of have to cap it. Probably have to cap the type of client we're bringing on, and just sort of coast is the wrong word, but just we'd be good. But eventually it came back to, no, we wanted to be some part of something bigger. And there's definitely an avenue here where financially we are going to be better off. So yeah, it's and how I think about it now is, again, there's elements of PWL that, are very familiar to anybody that knows the wealth management business. But there's also elements of, a startup where it's exciting. There's lots of stuff happening, and we're trying to change things. And it's that part of it. I certainly wouldn't. I don't think I guess the best way to answer that, I don't think I gave up anything coming over here for sure.
You want to jump to one of the other questions, Ben?
Yeah, let's jump ahead. Just look at the time. Let's jump ahead to a couple questions. There's one. Can you describe what financial planning looks like at PWL? Does every PWL client have a full financial plan in place? Right, maybe from your experience on the financial planning committee, you can give the first crack at this answer.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question because, and even just through M&A over the last few times, it can be challenging, and I don't think it's been communicated well as a whole. Like, I think the fee for service financial planning community has done a really good job in communicating like exactly what um, financial planning look like and what the requirements are for a financial plan. But I think also in that situation, it's pretty easy. Like there's a very well-defined start date and end date to that engagement. And for us, financial planning is a continuous engagement. Like it is an ongoing part of the client relationship. We view financial planning as a prerequisite to providing portfolio management advice. So it comes up every time there's a decision to be made regarding the portfolio, but more specifically, more generally speaking, anytime the client has a question or there's a change in their life circumstance, we revise we revise the financial plan. So does every PWL client have a full financial plan? I would say yes, but the specifics of that will definitely change depending on the client. I think that, like as an example, I think one of the nice parts about having this continuous relationship is that we can start in the areas that can be most impactful for the client, or even taking a step further, or sorry, a step backwards in the onboarding journey when they initially reach out to us as a prospect, they typically have something on their mind that they need help with. So I think having our approach, we can solve that problem, but usually in the process of solving that problem, we expose them to a whole bunch of problems that they didn't even know that they had, that we can then help them through, and then it just becomes obvious that it's going to be this continuous iterative relationship of doing financial planning and improving their um, financial well-being over the course of their lives. And when things change, we're the first ones there that can help them through that change and show them what that means to them and how they can navigate that decision and what the impacts will be.
Yeah, let's pop to that other question about transition. How does PWL facilitate a transition? What kind of help is available? Ben, you're deep in this.
Yeah. So the way I interpret this question is how does PWL facilitate a transition after a firm or a team decides to partner with PWL and merge the businesses together? And not going to sugarcoat it, like integrating an entire practice is a lot of work for the advisor and for PWL. That's the reality, but it's a lot of work for the right reasons. Once you find a good partner to work with, I think it's worth it to do a bit of work up front. And how kind of we look at approaching or facilitating a transition internally is we've kind of built up a team. We've done several transactions or partnerships now where we have learned along the way and we continue to get better. And we've built out a dedicated M&A operations onboarding team to help with the training and the paperwork to get the clients in the door. We've got a dedicated M&A integration lead. She is fantastic. She's been with the firm. Her name's Rebecca. She's been part of the Montreal team for many years, and she knows all aspects of the business. So she is extremely valuable in integrating teams to make sure they transition their team and their clients smoothly in a way that honors what they've been doing, but also merges together to create a similar continuous experience that PWL offers across the board. And we're continuing to learn and build and add to that over time. Like we've got support from HR, from the finance team, from operations to make sure your data is integrated properly in a way that makes sense.
Marketing,
There's
communications,
marketing
everything.
communications to help with the communication process, like to inform your clients, to help kind of dispel like or disseminate information like fee changes or service changes or deliverable changes, anything that might come up that is different from what the clients are used to, we work with you to help that. We've also set up like webinars where like people like Cameron or Ben Felix and Matt Gour, our head of wealth management, will come and join the advisors that have joined up with the team to have a dedicated client webinar to talk about what it's like and what they should expect, and just to kind of show the support of this is one team. They're now backed. You're still working with the advisors that you know and love, but they're now supported by a bigger team that can continue to enhance your experience.
Good answer. Okay, we have a few minutes left. Let's take another question. Taylor, how long does an average transition take? You're never average,
Well,
of course, but hypothetically.
yeah. Yeah, and I know, when we were talking to, what actually prompted this whole thing for us was a dealer change. There's, happens all the time in the industry. And so, I think there were a lot of promises out there for how quickly that can happen. And they'd always pull out the rare cases that happened, in 3 or 4 weeks, which kind of seems incredible. So I don't know about average. We were the first team to join PWL. And so I think Ben's right. You don't sugarcoat it. It's a lot of work, but you're also doing it together. It's not as if they sort of hand us something and say, okay, here are the things you need to do. Now go to work. We were working, but we were also working right alongside the people at PWL, helping us to integrate the clients and get our familiarity with the technology and systems like that. So I think we were at 80 to 90% of our book over within 2.5 months, which I think I'd sort of heard prior to this 2 to 3 months is kind of an average. So we were well within that. And as Ben said, we're learning all the time as we integrate more teams. So
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
next question.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I
Ben.
think the next question I was just going to say is related to this one. Like what has the success rate for block transfers been like? What percent of clients on average are following their advisor? Like, not to jinx or anything, but so far I think everybody, 100% of the clients that the advisors want to follow them are coming over. Like in some cases, it is an opportunity if you've got some clients that are a bit of a pain or some smaller clients that you didn't really want to continue managing. This is an opportunity to kind of separate yourselves from them. But so far, in all of the transactions or partnerships we've done, it has been at or near 100% transition. And that's a testament to the relationship that advisors have with their clients.
yeah, we did, and we didn't get objections from clients. We had questions, and the main question, I think the other teams have said this as well, is that the clients want to know that they're still working with you. Like, am I still going to get to talk to you? Are you my advisor? That was probably the number one question, which we were able to put at ease. But then we'd also shift that to being explaining about what PWL was and why we were doing this. And I think most clients kind of, our excitement and passion about it was infectious, and it gave the clients a lot of confidence that they've trusted us, they've been with us for many years, and this seemed like a natural evolution. And we really do think of this as an evolution of the business, not like a stop and pivot. It was when you look back at it as total evolution. So those are the main two questions. And after we satisfied those, most clients were congratulatory.
Excellent. Okay, guys, I think this went well. I'd love any feedback that our guests have if they find this format of value. We have a lot more questions that did come in, so maybe we'll do this again. We have our next webinar next month, so watch our LinkedIn feed for the date and time for the next one. If you want to have a chat about your next chapter, you can scan that QR code or just reach out to any one of us. But Ben and I are the ones responsible for meeting and talking to new potential advisors, but you can reach out to any one of us anytime. Guys, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just the chat again is more just an opportunity to learn about each other, like learn more about PWL, but we truly enjoy learning what people are doing across the industry and seeing what people are up to. So talk shop is just a fun chat. Talk shop. Yeah.
You and I talk.
I would echo that.
every day.
Yeah. Reach out to Cameron and Ben, and just it'll be interesting to see what even comes out of your mouth as you're thinking about this with them. It maybe forces you to think a little bit differently, but I would just say you kind of owe it to explore it and see what we're doing. If anything, to say no to it, but to understand what we're doing, because I think it's pretty exciting. So,
And if you want to see, Braden, what you're up to, people can always reach out to you too.
Yeah, 100% happy to show what we're up to and any new tools are coming down the pipe. Happy to show if you guys have any interest.
Super. All right. Almost at the
Awesome.
top of the hour. Thanks very
Thanks,
much
everybody.
for coming out, and we'll see you next month.